The theme of this year's Convocation ceremony is access to opportunity. And our featured speaker, I'm honored to say, is Nancy Page, a 1980 alumna and a former coach and instructor at UW-Stevens Point. We're extremely proud that the education that we provide our students and graduates gives them new opportunities that they might never have had. Yet as proud as we are, we recognize that these opportunities have not always been shared as equally as they should have been. Expanding access to opportunity has sometimes taken tremendous effort on the part of our faculty, our staff, and our students. And there's no better example of this than the history of women's athletics at UW-Stevens Point. Later this year, our campus will be honored to host the 2014 NCAA Division III Women's Basketball Final Four. This is a first for Central Wisconsin. That this event exists at all, that's right. That this event exists at all, let alone that it will be held here on the campus of UW-Stevens Point, is a more remarkable occurrence than you might realize. First of all, the opportunity for women to participate in collegiate athletics is something that has come about only fairly recently. In 1972, the federal government passed an education amendment that included a provision called Title IX. This law prohibited discrimination in educational programs based on sex, opening the door to the expansion of women's athletics on college campuses across the country, including here at UW-Stevens Point. But a federal law by itself was not nearly enough. The real work of expanding access to this kind of opportunity had to be done by the determined and dedicated individuals like Nancy Page. Nancy began her career as a teacher and coach of field hockey, basketball, and lacrosse at Germantown Friends School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She came to UW-Stevens Point in 1973 as a field hockey coach, and she became instrumental in implementing Title IX here at our university. She coached field hockey for 13 years, softball for 10 years, and tennis for 18. Her teams won numerous conference championships and participated in national competitions in all three sports. She was the Associate Director of Athletics from 1984 to 1997, and she also co-founded the Women's Athletic Fund. Nancy was inducted into the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics District 14 Athletic Hall of Fame in 1994 and the UW-Stevens Point Hall of Fame in 2006. At the 100-year anniversary of the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference in 2012, she was honored as the Field Hockey Coach of the Century. In all these ways, Nancy has blazed a trail for others to follow. Thank you, Nancy, for all that you've done to move our university forward and to give our students access to the many opportunities that they now enjoy. UW-Stevens Point incoming class of 2017 and members of the faculty and staff, will you please join me in welcoming Nancy Page. Nancy.
Wow, I wasn't expecting a crowd like this. The last time I spoke in this gym was in 2004, and that was to a badminton class of 24 students. This is a bit overwhelming, but I'm excited to see all of you here today. And for you new students, I have a homework assignment for you. Ask your grandmother if she had an opportunity to participate in school athletics. I came to UW-Stevens Point 40 years ago, 1 year after Title IX became law. Did equity in athletics come about immediately? Hardly. I was hired as the field hockey coach in 1973. Much to my surprise, I was expected to officiate my own games. My husband brought our 2 children to a game, and when my daughter saw me, she grabbed hold of one of my legs as I was running along the sideline. It was hard to keep up with play with a 2-year-old clinging on for dear life. The next season, I insisted that the university hire officials for the games. Our field hockey team was successful. We traveled all over the Midwest, playing in tournaments and invitationals. I would write up the results of these games and take them to the sports department of the Stevens Point Journal. Imagine my surprise when I looked for the story to appear in the sports section and found it in the society page. Times have changed. The girls and women in our community get excellent coverage of their sports. In 1973, women's athletics had one set of uniforms worn by 3 teams: volleyball in the fall, basketball in the winter, and track and field in the spring. And I remember them being very ugly. They weren't even purple and gold. They were navy and mustard. After the Student Government Association passed the athletic budget for the 1974-1975 school year, there was no increase for women's athletics. 2 women coaches and I went to see the vice chancellor to ask for more money. He said he had no extra money to give us. I asked him if the university had a lawyer whom we could contact. He said he knew of no one. The next morning, $3,000 had been deposited into the women's athletic account. And new uniforms were purchased for each sport. In those early years, we had $6 for meals if we stayed overnight. And that was before hotels offered free breakfasts for guests. We had lots of picnics and ate lots of sandwiches. In 1980, Chancellor Marshall gave us the money to start 2 women's sports, cross country and softball. Each sport received $2,000. I was appointed the new softball coach in spite of the fact that I had limited experience in softball, and I still coached field hockey. $2,000 didn't go far in starting a sport. I had to purchase uniforms and equipment, hire umpires, and provide transportation and meals for 18 players. Needless to say, we had to take on some major fundraising. We sold hundreds and hundreds of Portesi pizzas and candy. We practiced on the football field, the football practice field. No skinned infield and lots of bumps. We played our varsity games on Stevens Point Parks and Recreational Fields at Gerke and Iverson Parks. On one occasion, we were playing a doubleheader against UW-Whitewater at Iverson Park. We were up to bat in the 5th inning of the second game. Runners were on first and second. Suddenly, the city recreation director walked onto the field and told us we were out of time and we had to get off the field. I pleaded with him to at least let us finish the inning. No dice. As we gathered up our gear, men came onto the field to practice. That incident prompted some fathers and faculty members to demand that we get our own field on campus. We did. The Women's Athletic Fund was founded in 1980. It was the brainchild of Bonnie Galing and me. The men had their pointer club with many boosters, and they did not want to share their resources. So we began a booster club for women. We recruited interested and influential people from the community to be members of the board of directors, and most of the fundraising was done by mail. Over the years, the Women's Athletic Fund, or WAF, supplemented athletic budgets, bought uniforms for the newly established soccer team in 1987, and improved many facilities for women. Evidence of their support is visible throughout the athletic complex on campus, from electronic scoreboards, bleachers, press boxes, storage sheds, record boards, and renovations to the women's varsity locker room. WAF became inactive in the early 2000s because each woman's sport had established its own booster club. The charter, however, remains in place. In 1989, 17 years after Title IX became law, the president of the University of Wisconsin system, Kenneth Shaw, mandated that each campus conduct a thorough study of equity in athletics. It wasn't until that year-long study was completed that we began to see some real equity. Budgets in comparable sports were almost equal. Women's sports were able to hire assistant coaches, and larger teams were able to travel by buses rather than vans. The most recent addition to Pointer Athletics is women's ice hockey, established in 2000. Home games are played at Ice Hawks Arena on the east side of Stevens Point. As Dr. Summers has mentioned, UWSP will be the host of the 2014 Division III Women's Basketball Final Four in March. Our women's basketball teams have been successful over the past 41 years. I remember attending games in the early years when there were maybe 20 to 30 people in the stands, and I think most of those people were parents. We worked hard to generate interest. Even winning the 1987 national championship didn't bring in the crowds. Interest began to grow when people realized what a fast and exciting game women's basketball is. These days, I'm practically moved to tears when I walk into Berg Gym to a packed house with a pep band playing and Stevie Pointer greeting me. I attended the 2002 Women's Final Four in Terre Haute, Indiana, when UWSP won its second national championship. It was exciting. The stands were full, the community was involved, and many, many Pointer fans were there. I look forward to being part of the 2014 tournament, and I hope you do too. Title IX has influenced the sports culture over the past 41 years. Over 3 million girls participate in high school sports, and almost 200,000 participate at the intercollegiate level today. These opportunities have not come at the expense of participation for boys and men, as there has been a steady increase in participation of males. To quote Dr. Kathy Babiak of the University of Michigan, "Gender equity in sport remains a goal rather than a reality. We all strive to work towards that goal." So a bit of athletic history, and just a little bit of it. I could be up here talking all day. History is important. Your family history, your hometown history, and now your UWSP history. And just remember, it's great to be a Pointer. Thank you.